Atheist Nomads, episode 252. Christian Science? Really?
The podcast you're about to listen to includes cursing and talking about hoo-haws. Please be advised.
Welcome to another episode of Atheist Nomads. I am Dustin, and joining me is Lauren.
Hello.
We were supposed to have Mary with us, but she went home from work early today with a fever.
Aww.
Had some nasty bug going around her house, and she was apparently the last one to get it, so she's not here. She'll be here in a couple weeks, but that's sad.
Another mommy bites the dust.
And, you know, one of the reasons why we like having her on the show is she's got a baby just a month younger than ours that are going to be super best friends.
Super best friends.
Yeah, so, you know.
With, like, stickers and glitter and everything.
Uh-huh. And play dates and all of that. Yeah, and, you know, life for us is going along nice in all areas except for finances, but...
That's typical, though, of most people.
Especially new parents who have one staying home.
Yeah.
Or also new parents who are using daycare. Because that's not really any better.
No, not really.
So, yeah, we're looking at ways to improve the finances, changing phone carriers, and looking at trying to tweak my student loans to reduce the bills. If I'm lucky, we can get them cut in half.
Yay! Kind of.
And then we'll be able to have food to, or money to buy food to eat.
Yeah. I kind of overdid it at the store today, but we have a lot of meat now.
Yeah, meat's expensive.
Yeah, it is. But it's also delicious.
Yeah. It is. And often invalidly maligned by people. When it's not as bad as it seems for your health.
Yeah.
As more data is starting to come out. But that's getting...
The hamburger is like 73% though, so that's like super fatty.
Which is all going to just melt off on the grill.
Yeah, so I'm going to have to be careful about what we use that for. Like meatloaf, all that fat just stays in the pan. Not good for you.
No. But on the grill, yeah.
It should be... You'll have a lot of flames.
Just need to make super giant burgers and
nice
clean out the fat trap.
A lot of char.
Yeah. But anyway, we are getting way off topic. So let's go ahead and jump into Dustin Off the Degree. You have probably all seen the Christian Science Monitor, and I know we've used it a few times here on the show. It's a publication that generally does good reporting, and it's won 7 Pulitzer Prizes. There's also a decent chance that you've seen reading rooms in the downtown of the city you live in. We have one in downtown Boise. Science, reading, and good journalism. They can't be that bad, right?
Yeah, but there's that Christian.
And whenever you have a modifier like that on a good word, it usually means it's bad. Like you take family. Family's a good thing. Research is a good thing. Council is a good thing. You put those together, and it is a terrible hate organization. So the Church of Christ, scientist, and the church that's behind all of this. And the science is Mary Baker Eddy's divinely inspired revelation that the material world and illness are all illusions. The real world is purely spiritual, and wrong beliefs cause the illusion of illness, which can only be healed by corrective prayer. The corrective prayer is to correct your belief, and once your beliefs are corrected, the illness will go away.
Yeah, because we know how easy it is to change belief.
Yeah. If belief could be changed by prayer, I would be a pastor. But that didn't work out very well. And what's really interesting is a lot of this closely resembles Gnosticism, as we'll see as we continue to go along. But this is from the Spiritist movement of the late 1800s, and isn't any coincidental or any relation to Gnosticism is purely coincidental. So they will begrudgingly comply with vaccination laws. They will see dentists, optometrists, OBGYNs, and let doctors take care of broken bones. But they do discourage members from seeking medicine to treat illness, and they don't believe that medicine will prevent the prayers from affecting healing, but they believe that the healing will be more effective without the medicine.
Right, because there's more power in the faith if you don't have a backup to fall back on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your faith is obviously stronger if you haven't taken the antibiotics.
And your faith is really strong when your kid dies.
Yeah. Yep.
Because you didn't succumb to the medical woo.
Now, if you look at it in terms of the strength of the faith healing, I would put on a scale of, 1 to 5, where 1 is your average Christian who will pray to augment good medicine, and a 5 is the followers of Christ. Christian Science is about a 4. So they aren't as bad as it gets, but they still have a lot of dead babies.
Yeah, they're not much better.
Rita Swan is from the organization Child, which I don't remember what that stands for, but I know it includes in it that children have the right to live. She is a former Christian Scientist who had a child die of pneumonia. She left the church shortly after that, and she is the one who got Oregon's faith healing exemptions removed. And she's also been the one mentoring Linda Martin through her work in trying to get Idaho's removed.
Yeah, what a terrible reason to get into a fight like that.
Mm-hmm. To be fair, Eddie's revelations were first published in her 1875 book, Science and Health, at a time when medicine was not yet modern, and doing nothing was often as effective and sometimes even better than the care you could get from the local doctor, who often was primarily the barber.
The barber, dentist, doctor. Yeah. Dr. Baba.
This belief made the church that Eddie founded the fastest growing religion in America, peaking at 270,000 members in 1936, and it garnered them enough clout that a member who was working in the Nixon administration was able to get Nixon to force all 50 states to enact laws like that are the ones that are still on the books in Idaho that protect parents from prosecution if their child dies, as long as the kid was treated through prayer alone. Which that wording means only the best Christian Scientists, the ones who adhere most closely to the faith, are protected, and the wishy-washy ones are fucked.
So if you pray and give your kid Tylenol, you're exempt from that?
The exemptions do not apply.
Wow.
Now, I think specifically it's more if you take the kid to the doctor, one course of antibiotics doesn't take care of the pneumonia, so you don't go back to the doctor and you just pray. If the kid dies, you go to jail.
Wow, that's messed up.
But if you never go to the doctor, you're fine.
So backwards. Yeah,
those are laws that are worse than bad because they take bad and they make it worse. The Church of Christ, Scientist, doesn't just let anyone do faith healing. You have to be a properly certified Christian Science practitioner. And this is a position that in many states provides generous protections and standing at least in par with other quacks from yesteryear. And some insurance plans will pay for these corrective prayer sessions.
Oh my God. Wow, that's awesome for them, I guess.
Now, this seems really crazy that any insurance company would actually fund this. But is it any worse than insurance companies that pay for acupuncture or chiropractic?
Well, at least in the case of chiropractic, there's some actual something that's happening.
Yeah, there is physical contact.
There is. That's better than nothing, which is what prayer is.
Yeah. Okay. In the case of chiropractic,
at least from a physical therapy point of view, some chiropractic can be beneficial.
It's, as the evidence is suggesting, chiropractic is beneficial in helping with chronic lower back pain, on par with opiates, without the side effects of opiates. But if you have a chiropractor trying to treat cancer, and some do try to treat cancer, that isn't any better than what a Christian Science practitioner is doing.
True. Nothing is nothing.
Yeah. Now, what I think is actually even more fascinating with this group is their theology. Science and Health is considered inspired scripture, much like the Book of Mormon is to Mormons. God is the divine mind and the father-mother. Not the father...
Genderless?
Not the father and mother, but the father-mother.
Okay.
Both male and female. And
trans rights! Woo!
That would be more intersex.
True.
Or non-binary. Or one of those. And in many places, especially in the 3rd edition of Science and Health, since every good scripture needs multiple editions, since the divine inspiration obviously wasn't quite right the first time.
It never is.
She used a lot of feminine pronouns to describe God, just not consistently.
Oh, I was going to say, fuck the patriarchy.
Though there was a bit of the fuck the patriarchy going on, but pronouns, to be effective, need to be consistent.
Not in that case.
Well, that's just confusing.
Better than just calling it it.
If it's consistent, it at least isn't confusing.
I don't know. It's
Anyway,
not that confusing to me.
Well, if in chapter 1, you have a whole lot of talking about he does X, he does Y, and then in chapter 2, she does X, she does Y, I don't know how much clarification is to avoid confusion, but...
Oh, well.
Anyway, we're getting into the weeds with that. They believe that Jesus was the first Christian scientist, but that he is not divine, and Trinitarianism is rejected as polytheism.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
The first creation story in Genesis is accepted, but the second, more physical one is rejected.
Which, okay.
Genesis 1:1 through 2:6 is one story, and then the rest of chapter 2 and chapter 3 is a different story. Oh,
right, okay.
And so they accept the first story, but not the second story.
Wow, nitpicky.
Well, they're totally different creation myths.
They are.
Like, they're completely different.
But it's still nitpicking. The word of God. The infallible word of God.
No, that's Eddie's writing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, it really is pretty fascinating because they stick with the abstract first creation myth, which is all in these high terms. And I think part of it was she rejected the second story as being inherently sexist because the first one has, and God created man in his own image, male and female, he created them. So he created humanity, both male and female.
Yeah, which, it kind of supports her view of God being a man and a woman at the same time. Because it's freaking God, why not? Which
the second creation story has God creating Adam, and then when Adam gets lonely, he takes a rib and makes Eve out of that. And then Eve leads Adam astray and causes all humanity to be cursed with sin.
Yeah, I don't like that one.
That one is inherently sexist. The first one is very vague and kind of poetic.
Yeah.
Bullshit, but kind of poetic.
No, yeah, poetic. It's more images than...
It's high concepts. Yeah. And the second one is God gardening.
Well, it is a relaxing pastime.
And but Eddie's story was she got married, had a kid. Well, got married, got pregnant. Her husband died. She had the kid. She lost custody of the kid because in the 1800s, women couldn't have custody of children. You had to have a man to have custody. She got married again. New husband promised that he would assume custody of her son. Never did. And disappeared.
Oh, wow. And I can definitely see why maybe she didn't like mankind there.
And she didn't see her son again until he was 30.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah.
Fuck the patriarchy.
And then she started having visions and figured out the reality of the world in what is definitely not science.
Yeah. Where did the science come in? Was it just because it was published as, what would you say, like a science journal, but not really? Because
it was... Okay, so just like how modern medicine wasn't a thing yet at that point, modern science was still in the works. Yeah, the scientific method had been basically figured out, but she adopted the word. She thought scientists had it all wrong because they were focused on the physical world, which is all an illusion, and she had insight to the real world, so she was doing the real science.
Oh, okay. I can see that in a twisted, messed up sort of way.
Mm-hmm. And, this is in so many ways like textbook Gnosticism. It's not Gnostic in terms of trying to follow Gnosticism. It's a second iteration of Gnosticism. The whole holiness movement from this period, the spiritualist movement, is basically a new Gnosticism where the physical and the spiritual are completely separate, and the spiritual is what's real, and the physical isn't, and sin and suffering and all that stuff isn't really real, because the spiritual world is perfect and pure, and the physical doesn't matter. And Gnostics tended to believe in a aggrandized, much more sterile form of God than in the Bible. They weren't Trinitarian. They often used words to describe God in terms of being a mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it has, I would classify it as being more Gnostic than Christian, or Gnostic Christian, even though it's not descended from Gnosticism in any way. There is a modern neo-Gnostic movement, but this fits it so perfectly.
So in what aspect is this religion Christian if they didn't think that Jesus was divine?
They are no more Christian than Mormons or Jehovah's Witnesses.
Okay. All right. So they're Christian in name only, basically?
Well, actually, I would say they are less Christian than Mormons, and about on par with
At least Mormons
Jehovah's
believe
Witnesses.
Jesus came back and did miracles and stuff.
Oh, Christian Scientists believe he did miracles, just that he wasn't God's son. Mormons do believe he was God's son, but not divine. So they claim to be mainstream Christian. They aren't. And when people talk about the weird churches, it tends to be Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, and Adventists, because those are the ones that are either knocking on your door or running the hospital in your town.
Yeah.
And Christian Scientists keep quiet for the most part. Christian Scientists...
Well, that's because they have reading rooms everywhere that they treat like libraries. Shh.
Well, there's also only 100,000 Christian Scientists compared to 1 million or so.
So why are there Christian Science reading rooms all over the place? Is that where all their money goes?
Basically. Their headquarters is at the Mother Church.
Well, that's cool.
In Boston. And there's the original Mother Church, and then right behind it looks like a triangular U.S. Capitol building as the second Mother Church that was built, literally right behind the original one. So the original one's now basically the entryway into the massive, enormous structure.
That's what happens when you get too much money.
Yeah, well, and they built that in the 1930s when their membership peaked. So, yeah. Anyway, let's go ahead and take our first break, and then we'll be back with news. Atheist Nomads is proudly brought to you by listeners just like you. You can find out how you can become a patron at patreon.com/atheistnomads. That's patreon.com/atheistnomads. And we have a new patron, Jimmy Nine Toes. Autocorrect did not handle that right. And we got an upgraded patron, Al from Cestus 3.
Nice. Thank you.
Thank you both very much. It really means a lot. Support is incredible. We also got messages from both of them. Jimmy was a little confused because I'd most recently mentioned $1 a month. The way that works, Patreon is set up on a per episode basis. PayPal is per month. But Patreon you have the ability to set a monthly max. So if you want to only do $1 per month, you can sign up for $1 per episode with a $1 per month maximum, and you're doing $1 a month. It's a couple extra clicks, but that's how that works. But our preference would be $1 an episode, but $1 per month on Patreon gets you the bonus content.
All right.
Yeah. So that's the explanation for everybody about that. I'm sorry I was confusing.
Yeah, because Patreon tried to pull some crap before.
Yeah.
So it was a little confusing, but
we are making a couple changes. We would like patrons to be more involved in the production of the show.
Whoop whoop.
You aren't required to, but you are invited to. Dustin Off the Degree is a segment where sometimes I don't do it because I don't have time, and other times I don't do it because I don't know what to write about. And if you have a question or a topic suggestion, just ask away, and I will be sure to cover it in an upcoming episode, and you will be named the patron saint of the episode. I am shamelessly stealing that from Name Explain on YouTube.
Which is awesome.
And next week's episode, our Dustin Off the Degree, will be about the patron saint of doubters.
Yeah!
Show note and website lists. I have been terrible at getting information on what to actually put down there. So I've kind of defaulted to just first name. I'm going to be doing first name and last initial, unless it's obvious that you're using a pseudonym. So, for example, Al from Cestus 3. Obviously, Al's last name isn't from Cestus 3. So I'm using the whole name. From Jimmy's email, I was able to tell his last name isn't really Nine Toes. So, yeah.
Maybe it was Nine Toes.
No, it's Nine Toes.
Okay. I was like, maybe you slaughtered the pronunciation, but...
It's possible, but yeah.
Toes.
So, unless you're using a pseudonym or you tell me otherwise, it'll just be first name and last initial. But you can ask me to promote a project, organization, or business. That's something that's technically always been available. I just haven't talked about it much. So if, say, you want to promote your local atheist group or your podcast, and you're a patron or you're supporting us on PayPal, just let me know what you want us to promote, and it will be linked to in the show notes. We'll give it a shout out. And yeah.
Hopefully we both benefit.
And I am going to make a more intentional effort to ensure that there is bonus content at least monthly, if not more.
If we have Mikey, then that's a definite.
Yep.
So we just have to have him on at least once a month.
Yeah, basically.
Because, man, that man can talk.
Yeah. The last time Mikey was on, there was 25 minutes of bonus content, I think. And it wasn't just entire stories that were separated out. It was entire tangents in the middle of news stories we were talking about.
The tangents are the best.
That were amazing. I felt really bad about cutting some of them, but they didn't fit. So they went into the patron version. And there is a chance that we might do some ads here in the future. But if we do, patrons won't see them.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Patrons have their own feed. So yeah, no need for you to do that. And it's also worth noting the support for the show is important because it helps me prioritize the time that's needed to do this show. It keeps me accountable to you, not just to maintain the quality of the show, but to maintain the consistency in getting it out every week. Because if I don't get the show out 1 week, we lose money.
Yeah.
And it hurts. So that's why I don't miss weeks. It would hurt to miss a week. So it keeps us accountable to you. And it's an important thing. If it wasn't for the support, there is no way the podcast would have survived the baby.
Yeah.
But
most podcasts don't.
Yeah. But because of the support, it has, because you're buying diapers.
Aw.
Well, paying for hosting and all the business expenses, and then buying diapers. So thank you, patrons.
And she goes through a lot.
Yeah. All right. So for the news, there was another major school shooting, and it's sad that we don't hear about every school shooting. For example, this was one of 3 last week, and one of 2 that same day. But May 18, at the Santa Fe High School in Santa Fe, Texas, outside of Houston, 10 people were fatally shot and 13 wounded before the shooter was taken into custody by the police. This was a 17-year-old boy mad about apparently getting set off by a girl rejecting his advances, and the people he killed, he wanted to die.
Yeah.
The people he didn't shoot were his friends that he wanted to live to tell his story. That's what he told the cops.
That's messed up. Yeah, he didn't go in there spraying bullets. He went in there and shot people down. And what was interesting about this case is that apparently this guy had been pursuing this girl for quite a while, months, and she quite publicly told him to, basically F off. It brings up an interesting point of how we raise boys to interact with girls. Oftentimes, if a boy likes a girl and she says no, the advice we give him is to, well, don't give up. When that's exactly what he should do. If the girl says no, you back off because she's not interested. Pursuing her after she says no is a sign of, it's a sign of some problems. Sign of disrespect at the very least. And this unfortunately was a result of one such misguided attempt at dating.
And the way that advice ends up being given out to don't give up, keep trying. Yeah, sometimes you can badger a girl into giving up and giving you a chance. That's not the start to a good relationship.
No.
And what it does is it teaches boys to harbor very, very long-lasting, painful crushes. I had one as a kid where that crush started in 7th grade, was strongest in 8th, and wasn't totally gone until she was married and we were in college. Because don't give up.
Yep. Go stand outside her window with the boombox. See how fast the police get called.
Yeah.
And also, I just wanted to point out how terrifying this is for girls all over the country who are too scared to tell a guy no. Because he might come and shoot them.
Yeah.
It is literally a life and death decision every single time a woman decides to interact with a male. And that needs to stop.
Oh, definitely. And this is also a good case of some pretty good evidence that everything we are doing to try to stop school shootings is failing. There were 2 armed police officers on campus. The school had one of the best plans in place for how to respond to a school shooting. And this is the 3rd or 4th highest kill count for a primary or secondary school in the United States across history.
Yeah, so having SROs isn't helping.
2 armed police officers on campus. All they're good at doing is harassing minorities and busting kids for bringing drugs onto campus. And that's not effective. There are also memes that are showing this with a lot of the other mass shootings of being ones that were done with an AR-15. This was not. He had a handgun and a shotgun, which is one reason why it's 10 dead, 13 wounded, because shotguns have a large blast pattern, highly lethal at close range, lots of wounded people for a large area.
Well, yeah, it's for shooting down birds.
Yeah. So you start firing off a shotgun in a classroom, and he was able to break into barricaded classrooms and start firing because he hit the art classes. That was it. And with a shotgun, you can hit everybody in the room just as easily with a shotgun as you can with an AR-15.
Yeah.
Now, that is not saying that we don't need to ban AR-15s, but don't try to say that this one was one of those or share memes that include this on the list of AR-15 mass shootings. There is a mass shooting problem. AR-15s are a huge part of that problem, but they aren't the totality of the problem.
You're a stickler for the details.
If we make mistakes in making arguments, it weakens the argument.
Yes. Oh, that was cheerful.
Yeah. Well, we aren't done with it. The Houston police chief spoke up about the matter and told CBS News' Face the Nation, people at the state level and the federal level in too many places in our country are not doing anything other than offering prayers. We need to start using the ballot box and ballot initiatives to take the matter out of the hands of people that are doing nothing, that are elected, into the hands of the people to see that the will of the people in this country is actually carried out. They also added that local governments are starting to make a difference with their own reforms.
That's where it's going to happen. I think it's going to be the local grassroots campaigns that citizens do. Because getting your local congressman to do anything is a fight in futility.
Yeah. He also said, I think that the American people, gun owners, the vast majority of which are pragmatic and actually support gun sense and gun reform in terms of keeping guns in the hands of the right people. Yeah, thoughts and prayers do nothing. We need real reforms, and we need to actually allow federal funding of research to help guide those reforms.
Yeah, there's no reason why this stuff shouldn't be studied thoroughly.
Yeah. It's also kind of disappointing that, like in our case, Saturday, I called up the Boise Police Department to schedule surrendering my weapon so they could be destroyed, to have one less gun on the street. And there was nobody at the office to take it, and nobody came to get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not for a buyback program. That's just a civilian voluntarily getting rid of his gun. And they're not making it easy.
No, they're not.
They're going to get a second try before I contact the media.
Nice.
Yeah, the KTVB has already covered this same basic story with a guy successfully doing it. Yeah, I'm sure they would cover a second story about it. The Dallas mayor also spoke up, and in his statement, he said, "I renew my call for Congress and the president to take substantive action on the mass shooting epidemic in our country. History will not look kindly upon those elected officials who failed to act in the face of repeated mass murders of children. Spare us your thoughts and prayers and do your job."
I think we're missing also a big chance to promote self-responsibility. Like, this obviously changed your mind about gun ownership. You wanted to give up your gun. Mm-hmm. A lot of people have, given the NRA crap. Well, it's time to actually, drop the NRA.
Yeah.
If you're a member. And if you have extra guns that you don't use, or if you're like us and you decide that aren't necessary, go ahead and do it. Don't wait for Congress to ban stuff. Don't wait for the local government to make rules. Just do it yourselves.
Mm-hmm. And if you are an NRA member and wanting to drop that, it is not easy. I was an NRA member, and they have finally stopped sending me stuff.
After I made you go online and unsubscribe, right?
There isn't a way to do it. They are hard to get rid of. And if you look at the data, and I know this is going to sound crazy and conspiratorial, but it's what the Senate concluded, the Russians used the NRA to funnel money to Trump.
I was going to say, maybe that's how you unsubscribe. Maybe you have to speak Russian.
which means the NRA has become a front for hostile foreign powers to sow discord and disorder in the United States.
It's actually treasonous to be a part of the NRA.
Yeah, if you call yourself a patriot, you cannot be a member of that treasonous organization that is literally banking on the death of children.
Now, if you're still into guns and you're a gun enthusiast, find a local club or organization. Support those guys.
Yeah.
That, do the local safety courses and, that stuff. Don't give, The National Rifle Association is bad juju.
Well, and it's not like I'm not necessarily going to ever be a gun owner again. It's just I'm not now, because the guns I had, I purchased out of fear and paranoia for self-defense working in dangerous areas in the Puget Sound. I actually had to testify in a felony trial where what I witnessed was assault, but all I could speak to was the fact that a already convicted felon had a gun in his hand that he used to pistol whip an employee of mine. I should not have been allowed to get a gun. I had bad reasons, was unqualified, stupid, and we have a baby in the house. Yeah, I don't want that here.
Yeah, I don't want to get shot by my toddler.
Yeah. So we had the U.S. consulate in Jerusalem was remodeled and has been reopened now officially as the new U.S. embassy in Israel. In Jerusalem. This is in violation of UN Convention. This is in violation of the standards and practices of every single country in the world, and in violation of 60 years of U.S. precedent. I have walked by the now U.S. embassy in Jerusalem. It was actually always bigger than the embassy in Tel Aviv, because it was the real embassy, but just not called one because that's a good way to piss off a bunch of Muslims. Well, Trump picked Robert Jeffress to speak and pray at the dedication ceremony. Robert Jeffress is somebody we have clips from on the show all the time. He's a Fox News contributor, a Dallas, Texas megachurch preacher. He is one of Trump's biggest supporters, and he spoke at the opening of the embassy, which is especially bad considering some of his statements he's made in the past. He has said that Islam promotes pedophilia, that it's evil, violent, and a false religion. In 2011, he said, every other religion in the world is wrong. Islam is wrong. It is heresy from the pit of hell. Mormonism is wrong. It is heresy from the pit of hell. And Judaism, you can't be saved from being a Jew.
Wow.
And he spoke at the opening
of an embassy.
Of an embassy in a Jewish nation, literally a mile from Arab neighborhoods.
Well, they're also, there's even been rumors that they're trying to pass laws to make it illegal to say anything negative about Israel. Democrats and Republicans. That's insane.
Yeah.
So it's like there's this whole thing that is sliding under our noses as we pay attention to all this other stuff, and it's really disturbing.
Well, there is a thing that evangelicals like Jeffress want. They believe that for Jesus to return, the Jewish people have to rebuild Solomon's temple in Jerusalem, which will require the destruction of the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third most holy place in Islam, because that's where the temple needs to be. And the Jews are going to have to restart sacrifices, something they haven't done in 2,000 years. And then the biggest world war that will make all past world wars seem minuscule will start as Armageddon is fought over Jerusalem. They want war, death, and pestilence.
What a nice religion.
Now, while that despicable specter was going on in Jerusalem, Palestinians were protesting. Not surprising that they would. And in Gaza, at the protest, Israeli forces started shooting at them, killing 57 and injuring more than 2,700.
Oh my God, that's so messed up.
Oh, and there was actually a 58th death with a baby who died from tear gas inhalation.
See, and our government is supporting this.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, this isn't something that's happening in some foreign nation. This is our puppet state, basically, doing this. And I don't know. I don't know why people keep voting in the same people. I don't know.
There's
burn it down. There's
a reason why the Israelis are harsher when there's a Republican president than a Democratic president. And that is before they do anything big, they call Washington and ask whether it's okay. And if they get a yes, they do it. And a bunch of people die. I'm kind of guessing in this case, they probably asked and got the thumbs up. Now, of course, the UN Security Council was not happy about this and called for a independent and transparent investigation into the killings. The statement that was drafted by Kuwait expressed outrage and sorrow, and it demanded that all countries comply with the decades-old Security Council resolution calling on them to not station diplomatic missions in the contested holy city of Jerusalem. And the U.S. blocked it. Permanent seat with veto power. So
yeah, that should be taken away.
That resolution, that investigation isn't going to be happening. Yeah. Interestingly, at the ceremony with Ivanka and Jared there, they pledged commitment to lasting peace while dozens were killed 50 miles away. Tony Perkins, president of the Family Research Council and a noted anti-LGBT hate group and Christian Dominionist organization, has been appointed by Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell to spend the next 2 years as a commissioner at the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. This is the same guy who in 2010 defended Uganda's Kill the Gays bill as upholding moral conduct that protects the most vulnerable. In 2014, he said the First Amendment doesn't protect the religious freedom of Muslims or Christians whose views aren't, quote, based on orthodox religious viewpoints.
Well, we know that whenever something with the words religious freedom is brought up, that it's code.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. He said in 2011 that the government shouldn't treat adherents of fringe religions as equal to Christians. He's referred to atheists and other advocates of separation of church and state as cultural terrorists. He is the embodiment of what religious freedom means now, and that's discriminating against gays. Fuck you, Mitch McConnell, and fuck you, Tony Perkins. Cynthia Dunbar used to be on the Texas Board of Public Education. She was one of the ones involved in the textbook controversy that was trying to put creationism into the curriculum, take out Thomas Jefferson, and rewrite history to make America a Christian nation. She lives in Virginia now and is running for Congress in Virginia's 6th Congressional District. And she's in the lead. But because she isn't the only one running, and there's a chance she could lose the nomination, the local Republican Party decided to cancel the primary and switch to a convention so that a woman who wants a biblical litmus test for holding public office so that she can get into the United States Congress. This is absurd. This is absolutely insane. And if we're lucky, she will be swept away with the blue wave. Because getting somebody that insane into office is not necessarily the best thing to do in an election year that leans heavily against Republicans. This is a safe seat that might come into play. And Congress is calling on the Army to investigate why Fort Campbell in Kentucky fired the civilian who had been leading Jewish services on the base. The nearest synagogue is 60 miles away. They haven't had a rabbi in decades. And Jeanette Mize has served as the community's lay leader for almost two decades. Well, new chaplains came in that didn't want anything not Christian, and preferably not anything that's not evangelical Christian, and they started making life difficult for her, and they finally removed her from the position right ahead of Passover. They fired her in February, and the Military Religious Freedom Foundation has gotten involved. Mikey Weinstein, who himself is Jewish, I'm sure definitely has an interest in seeing a good outcome for this one. And they've gotten Jewish congressmen like Elliot Engel, Democrat from the Bronx, and Lee Zeldin, Republican from Long Island, to help push for an investigation into this discrimination. And odds are this is going to get reversed because, yeah, the 60 Jewish service members on that base deserve to have somebody meeting their needs. And a civilian lay leader is, I would say, even better than having a chaplain because it's not costing taxpayers anything. So there's obviously no good reason for them to get rid of her. So yeah, we'll hopefully see updates on this one, and I am optimistic that this will go well. From our listeners, you can email us at contact@atheistnomads.com, tweet us at atheistnomads, Send us a message on our Facebook page at facebook.com/atheistnomads, or better yet, call us and leave us a message at 541-203-0666. We might even play it on the show. You can also help us out by leaving us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or your podcast directory of choice. In the country of Mali, armed men abducted a 5-year-old albino girl and beheaded her in a ritual murder to get magic body parts. This happened because her family was sleeping in the courtyard. She was there with her mother and sister, and a bunch of armed men showed up at 2 a.m. The mom tried to pursue the kidnappers, but then after they scaled a wall, she turned back to protect her other daughter, who is also an albino. And they searched for her, and they found her body beside a mosque without her head. People are really angry about this. There has been, across Africa, an increase in recent years in albino people being hunted down for use in magic. That their body parts can be used to cure things, or to bring good luck, and to even help win elections. This is absolutely insane. Oh, man. I mean, you would think that Christian and Muslim communities in Africa wouldn't buy into this bullshit. They still do. It's not just people that are holding on to the traditional religions. Because, yeah, a lot of people end up doing this kind of stuff. And it is absolutely bonkers. Who would think that hacking off the limbs of a person who just is lacking pigment could bring you wealth? To be an albino person in Africa, they get discriminated against. They have eyesight problems. They have higher risk of skin cancer. They have a hard time getting a hold of suntan lotion because, well, most people in Africa don't need it. So it's really expensive because everything they're getting is being imported from elsewhere and was made initially and originally for Europe and North America. So the life of a person who is an albino in Africa is going to be rough and difficult, but to also be hunted down and slaughtered for ritualistic witchcraft. Man. And this one was just about one case because they actually got a child. You don't hear much about it when it's adults that are getting hacked up. But Mali has an election coming up, presidential election on July 29, and they are seeing an increase in crimes against albinos, and definite link to political events that are going on. And I don't get it. This is insane. Absolutely insane. Egypt is working on trying to pass some laws to improve things and make everything better and to fight atheism. So this proposed law that they've been working on since March would define the state's understanding of atheism, criminalize it, and impose severe punishments, and also say that the penalties are lifted when you abandon your atheistic beliefs. And it also includes that penalties for atheism prescribed by law should be very strict. Realistically, what do you expect when you've got a Muslim-majority country that, yeah, okay, they got rid of the authoritarian regime, but because they don't have a tradition of democracy, it's the rebel groups that have been able to get a lot of influence, and those rebel groups were the ones who thought the secularist authoritarian regimes across the Middle East were bad, and the answer to all the problems is more Islam. Well, atheism is on the rise, in part thanks to the internet, and there's no stopping that. And they actually have a committee in their parliament on religion. So it's not surprising that they are trying to fight atheism with the law. It's not going to go well. It definitely isn't. In Minnesota, Reverend Louis Brouillard has been trying to keep out of the public light, but he is wanted in Guam, where at least 60 men have sued him, saying that he sexually abused them as children. So Guam, which is a U.S. territory, has been working on trying to get to the bottom of all of the pre-sexual abuse that's been going on. And the most frequently accused person is Brulard, who's now 96 years old. He spent 30 years on Guam, fucking as many boys as he could. Then he got transferred in 1981 back to Minnesota, where he served at 3 churches and brought some teen boys from Guam to live with him in Minnesota for obvious reasons. Now, the Duluth DOC actually did revoke his ability to serve as a priest in 1985 because of the questions about these guests that were staying with him. But he's actually not been defrocked. And he currently lives across the street from a Catholic school with a view of the playground with slides and a climbing tower, so he can sit on his front porch and watch the kids. So is anything going to happen with this one? Realistically, probably not. He's 96 years old, and I doubt Minnesota would fly him back to Guam. And I'm sure the statute of limitations has passed on everything he's done. And in the country of Chile, the Pope had a consultation with some of the leaders from that country about all of the kid fucking that had been going on and all of the cover-ups. Like, a lot. Like, enough that he actually said that he felt pain and shame over the scandal in Chile. And as a result of this, all 34 Roman Catholic bishops in the country have offered their resignations. The reason is they're all guilty. They have all either abused children or covered up abusers. All 34 of them. Now, some of them got appointed by Pope Francis, despite allegations against them, at least of cover-ups. And some of them have already offered their resignations to the Pope prior to this mass resignation offer, but so far, they've all been rejected. So now we all wait to find out, does the Pope accept the resignations, or does he not? So this is one we'll need to watch further, and hopefully we'll have updates for here within the next few weeks. But you'd think after a 10-page document about all the negligence in handling sex abuse cases that the Pope handed to the bishops, that he would gladly accept the resignations. Now, of course, when 100% of one of the most Catholic countries in the world, when 100% of the bishops in one of the most Catholic countries in the world all resign at the same time, that could create some issues. But in all practicality, nowhere near as bad as the issues caused by the abuse, the cover-ups, and the public anger about it all. Dennis Ryan was a detective in Australia until he was forced out of the police force in 1972. That was nearly 50 years ago. So what had happened was he started hearing about priests abusing children in the state of Victoria in Australia. And he started investigating. Several senior police officers heard about this case he was working and ordered him to stop. He refused, and he was forced to resign. All he was trying to do was investigate a priest sexually abusing children, and he was forced out. He blamed the decision on his superiors having allegiance to the church, and because of that, they abused their power to obstruct justice. Well, there's been a Royal Commission inquiry going on in Australia about child sexual abuse for the last few years, and this case has been looked at as a part of that. So as a result of all of this, the state government of Victoria has decided to award him an undisclosed sum of money, since he was deprived of a police pension and salary and treated very poorly. So this is a nice, happy one. The Electronic Frontier Foundation has been keeping up with a lawsuit since 2013 when Personal Audio LLC sued Adam Carolla and other podcasters, claiming that his U.S. patent was being infringed because his patent was for a system for disseminating media content in serialized episodes. And EFF won the case at the patent office. They won on appeal, and the Supreme Court has rejected Personal Audio's petition for review, which means that this case is finally over. That means that patent is not valid, and that means that podcasting has been saved. So thank you to the Electronic Freedom Foundation. And finally, the U.S. Senate voted 52-47 to take advantage of the Congressional Review Act to overturn the FCC's December decision to end net neutrality. This was a very good thing. Nobody's expecting to get 52 senators, considering every Democrat was in favor of it. And at the start, almost every Republican was opposed. And John McCain is out fighting brain cancer. So they got John Kennedy of Louisiana, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, and Susan Collins of Maine. And with those three Republicans, it won. And now the House needs to take it up. The big telecom companies are working really hard to fight this, but we can win if we put enough pressure on the House. It has to be done this year, so it can't wait for the elections. And every Democrat and 25 Republicans have to sign on to it to force it to the floor, because there is no way that Paul Ryan is going to back this. So I don't care if your representative is Republican or Democrat, you must write, call, show up at town hall meetings, do whatever you can to press them and push them on this, because we need a fair and free internet, and we need to win this fight. I'm including a link in the show notes to a handy form you can use to make it easy to contact your representatives. So you can find that in the show notes. And that is all the time we have. And that's all the time we have for this week. Lauren, thank you so much for powering through most of the episode.
Yeah, taking care of the baby.
And yes, of course, for that as well. And listeners, remember, not all those who wander are lost.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Atheist Nomads. You can find show notes and contact information at atheistnomads.com. Follow us on Twitter at Atheist Nomads, and like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Atheist Nomads. Please subscribe to the show in iTunes, Stitcher, or your podcatcher of choice, and while you're there, feel free to leave us a review. Theme music is courtesy of Sturdy Fred. Until next time, this has been the Atheist Nomads.